Hey everyone,
Hey.
this is
Hey.
Sonia Matei, and together we are
Like Glivars.
And today we have a very cool topic and a very special guest. So today this will be all about startups selling your vegan product. And our guest is actually Tilen Travnik. He is a food scientist who is successfully an entrepreneur now. He co-founded Juicy Marbles, keep that name in mind, to bring plant-based whole-cut steaks to the masses. Furthermore, he's a family man and a geek. And yeah, the products that he has are really mind-blowing, so stay tuned to know what this is about. So welcome, Tilen. Thank you for
Hi.
being here with us.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, thanks for inviting me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you for being here. We have a first question that's quite interesting.
But before we go to first question, if you allow, Anya, maybe I would just like to tease people who are here for this podcast, watching the first time, to see what we're going to talk about, just in very, very short. But I think it's very important to show you who Tilen is and what he does, so you know why to listen to this. Look at this. This is like Juicy Marbles.
Very cool.
What do you think about this?
Looks delicious.
I mean, whoever is watching this, of course, may think, why are we looking at these things? Because this is a bit not so vegan.
Yeah.
But Tilen, is this vegan?
Yes, it is.
This is vegan. Look at this. Are you kidding me?
Looks crazy.
It's 100% vegan. Yeah.
So this is your product, huh? We're going to talk about this.
Yes, exactly. This is our product. It's
okay.
It's the world's first plant-based filet mignon, which is just one of our first products. We have a whole lineup already in the making, but we started with the filet mignon because it's the most prominent, and in like if we go towards saving animal lives, think of a whole cow has to be slaughtered to harvest just a good kilo and a half of this filet mignon. So that's why it is so inexpensive, but that's also why it's so tender, because it's a very lazy muscle in the cow, and it doesn't move much. So that's why it's tender and juicy and has all the properties that meat eaters enjoy so much.
Crazy. I must admit that I'm one of those who tried this steak before it even went to market, because Tilen is from Slovenia. We know each other for some time now, and it's like mind-blowing. Even if I prepare, Anya, believe me, it was amazing. But enough about that, because now we want to talk about more serious topic in a way, how to make these products, first of all, and how to make a market for them and how to sell them eventually. But before we go to that, Tilen, I would like to ask you something that you mentioned in some of one of your lectures, when you were talking about technology and how technology get this adoption, eventually. For example, the phone didn't get adopted in 1 year, but eventually we all have phones. And also, where are we with veganism today when we compare with technology, in this sense? And I'm going to also share a screen that you can maybe easier talk about this topic properly.
Sure. Yeah. So
let us know this a bit more and pay attention, because this is very interesting topic.
Yeah. So what you're seeing now, and I have to pay credit to the person who created this wonderful chart. It's not mine, but there's actually a book called Crossing the Chasm. That is the whole book around this notion that every technology, every movement, every even like upwards to religion has this adoption curve. So there's, if you think there's the whole market is assembled out of groups, there's the specific groups that we can observe with any new technology or product penetrating the market. So if we briefly go through it, I think we do the best. So first, we have 2.5% of the whole population are considered innovators. So those are the people who now talking about technology, really like to discover new things, really like to test things before they're even ready for the market. They like to hack things and tinker and modify them to suit their needs. They're very open to giving feedback, negative and positive feedback to the creators of the product. Then we have the visionaries, or sometimes they're called early adopters, and there's a bit more of them, but they are already happy they're happy to be one of the first, but they're already starting to give a little bit less of feedback and already are prepared to pay a higher price. So they are already expecting almost a finished and final product. For example, they would buy a product even though the company wouldn't offer a really good customer support, because they're still, can live with a few hiccups here and there. Then there's the chasm, which we'll talk about later. Then there's the early majority. Those are people who, for example, if you talk to phones, so like innovators bought the first iPhone or even the touchscreen phones before that. Then visionaries bought the second iPhone or the third iPhone, and then the pragmatists are those who kind of read online reviews, and they would go to Amazon and read the reviews and say, okay, so people think this is a good product, I'm going to buy it. Then late majority, and they like stop giving feedback proactively. And then late majority are people who would ask peers, like, my mom would ask me, should I buy the smartphone? And I would say yes at some point, right? And then the laggards or the skeptics are people who would only buy the technology or adopt the technology when there's no other way to get in touch with people or see the photos of our grandchildren or etc. So that's my father would be somebody like that, right?
Okay. And now veganism.
So veganism, I think it's quite comparable. I think veganism, like hardcore veganism, is still in the innovators stage, because just by the market share, right? Most analyses say that there's about 1% to 3% of vegans in any given population, Israel being an exception. Apparently there's 11% vegans, but still I think we're very early. But we do have like a really strong force of visionaries that are coming. Mostly those people are basically using products like that we do, like meat imitations as a gateway drug, as a transitional element. So they go from eating meat and then reducing slowly and just keeping the plant-based parts in their diet. And with that also comes our greatest challenge, which is the chasm. And for tech companies, the chasm means, so remember how I told you before that feedback from the users, proactive feedback is lowering, and is basically at zero by the end of the early adopters. And most or a lot of companies perceive this as, oh, our product is great, our product is perfect, we don't need to change it. And then basically everything just drops because the early majority has significantly different needs for each product, right? So you have to start obtaining feedback proactively. You start to make service interviews, customer interviews, to be able to have the insight to modify the product so that early majority will be able to use it. So this is a little bit techy, but I think that we are just entering the era where we'll start to listen to meat eaters and their problems with plant-based products or alternatives, and kind of adopt and start modifying those products so more and more people will be happy to ditch meat in favor of a plant-based product.
And that's why we're here today, to talk about this topic, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
So you think his company is vegan?
Actually, yes. My first question was, is your company, by the way, vegan, and the employees?
And are you vegan?
I am vegan. I am probably 99.98% vegan.
What does that mean? Yeah.
So it like I know that for a lot of hardcore vegans, this will be he's not one of ours. He's not 100% vegan. But I will admit that I have tried after 6 years a small piece of filet mignon before we launched, because we did a comparison test, and I did want to see how close we are. And personally, I didn't like the real meat better than our meat. And I even found it dry. So this brings us into, like, let me answer the rest of the question, but then I'll jump back. So employees in our company, even the co-founders, are not all vegan. There's half and half, roughly half and half. And I think this is a benefit actually for a company like ours, because we do, we kind of understand what the motivation for buying and experiencing and what the expectations about or for the experience of such a product is, also by a meat eater. So I Pat Brown would say I would be a hypocrite if I wouldn't be a vegan, and even he is trying to encourage his employees to turn vegan. So that's what we are doing. But people are employees are a general section of the population, so you cannot really you can influence, but you cannot expect everybody to be vegan. And in our case, I think this is now an advantage. Well, an advantage, it comes in handy. So going back to the point of me not liking the small piece of filet mignon, how we set our vision for the products is that the meat eaters will start adopting a healthier, environmentally sounder, and ethically more acceptable diet once it's better. So the experience is better than the experience of real meat. Once it's comparable in price or even cheaper, and that's already the case, it's better for the environment than for the animals, right? So we're still working on the price and experience. And for example, we think that not all characteristics of products will transfer over. So if you say something is great about a piece of real meat, we'll have to invent some new parameters about. And one such example, I guess, Matej, you did eat meat like when you were young. So remember when you put a piece of meat in your mouth and you started chewing, right? So the first few chews are very juicy because the cells collapse and then you have all these juices flowing out. But then if you keep the piece of meat in your mouth for too long, if you chew it too long, then it kind of starts getting dry and almost cannot swallow it because it really becomes this mass of protein, which is like difficult to chew. And our product doesn't have this problem. It's constant. It is consistently juicy throughout the bite, right? So it's little things like that. There's no like those gross tenders and ligaments and stuff like that. There's it's clean of that. Plus we can play with how much fat is in there, so we can make a totally lean product, which would be like something that's considered very healthy, or we can go all the way to like really fatty pieces of meat which have a lot of fat in them. But by the way, this fat is sunflower oil, so it's unsaturated, it's healthy, it doesn't have any cholesterol. So yeah, that's essentially. So one of the things that we also think is necessary is that the real meat is really versatile. So you can do a roast, you can do minced meat, you can do pulled, you can do steaks, you can do whatever. And with current plant alternatives, there's the flexibility of how you can use the product is a little bit weak. So we kind of upgraded this. Here you can see a roast that we did it with my children. Herb crust. You can do pulled, you can do steak, you can do grill, you can whatever. So there's many more options than just with the minced meat product like a burger.
I mean, it's amazing. Like, honestly, looking at that is mouth-watering. We just ate some vegan burger tonight.
Literally 1 hour before this.
It was really like, it was okay. I mean, I'm vegan for the animals, not for the steak. But yeah. I mean, really, what you have, I miss this out there. And I mean, maybe you want to share with us how, as a vegan who wants to develop a product, we can find an idea that we can bring to the people. Sure. And how it's actually sellable to the masses.
So my story was, I studied food science and I was exposed to all the horrors of the food industry while I was studying. I even stopped eating meat for periods of 6-9 months while studying. Because it was really horrible. I mean, you've been to the places and you know what's going on, so it's not nice. But the social norms, the culture, the pace of life, it's kind of difficult to ditch all those cultural norms that you have in your head and focus on that. But then, like I discovered, many of my friends who turned plant-based have actually done it because of like small health hiccups that started appearing, right? So for example, my cholesterol was not extremely high, but it was on the high side of the normal range. So I said, what the fuck? I can just eat like no cholesterol with food, and it will go down a little bit. And the little bit was good enough for me. I'll be in the green zone if I just lower it.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
So that's basically what I did. I tried, and I said, okay, so let's do a week, let's do 3 weeks, and kind of it felt easy. Also, my wife joined me. She was a vegetarian before for 20 years, and my wife joined me.
Cool.
And that also made it much easier. So that was always be my advice. If you live in a relationship, try your significant other also to join you in this experiment, and it will be easier because you cook, whatever. So I started looking around, and when I finished high school, I went into IT because IT was a faster moving industry. It was more exciting, more interesting. But then when I turned plant-based, and I started noticing all these plant-based startups, like Impossible was just ramping up, Beyond was just ramping up, and I was like, oh, interesting. So now there's food companies who are using startup funding and startup tools and startup methodologies to grow their business. And
which is amazing.
This is where it clicked. And I started shaping the life around myself in a way that I would be exposed to many more such ideas. And one of those things was a hackathon at which I met my co-founders, Maya and Luca. And then the fourth co-founder we met actually at the Kucha restaurant, which I guess you were at. So it is a plant-based restaurant. So Vladimir, our fourth co-founder, ran this restaurant. Obviously, because of COVID, they had to shut down. But he joined us, so it's very nice to have a holistic team of, a microbiologist, a biotechnologist, a food scientist, and a communication expert, right? So we have like a pretty holistic team.
So the thing is that now it sounds that this is very complicated. You have to have these scientist people and so on if you want to do
not at all. Yeah. So yes, if you want to launch a super complex product, and if you want to get money from investors all over the place, then you better have some technology that you can protect. That you can make an argument that this business will be a huge business, then you'll get funding for the huge business. But also, there's a lot of people who are starting great things on a smaller scale, which can be a nice lifestyle business. The most important thing you have to find is you have to create a product that people will genuinely like. So it's not just like you make something, you come up with something in your kitchen, then you serve it to your friends, and they kind of nod, okay, that's fine. I guess the real validation is when you start to sell something. And then if you sell something at a slightly above expected price and people are still buying it, then you really have something that people want, right? So that would be kind of my initial reaction. Obviously, people are bashing the plant-based lifestyle as, oh, this is super expensive. And everybody has argued, no, it's not. You just have to adapt. You have to, buy this and this and all that and that. But people who eat meat sometimes buy more expensive cuts of meat, and most often they buy cheaper cuts of meat. And it's same with plant-based food. So it's good to start with something that you can price a little bit higher, because if you price something a little bit higher and if you manage to sell it, more cash will be left for you to develop the business, right? So if you sell something really cheaply at the beginning, and let's say you sell something for €2, and then after all the cost and labor and blah blah blah, you're left with 15 cents, you're not going to survive, because 15 cents will not allow you to grow your company. But if for every product you sell, you're left with half of half of the money you got for it, then you have the beginning of a viable business. So something that people like, and then even though it might feel hard and you might feel like, oh, I'm a dirty capitalist because I'm selling this thing for so much money, when you grow, your costs will expand and you will eat into the margin you're creating. So even though something seems amazing at the beginning, you end up with no money because you hire a designer, you hire a lawyer, you hire all those people, and then at some point you kind of realize that your margins are too low. So aim high with the price and try to convince people, not just your friends, to buy the product.
So this is also kind of the reason why these vegan products usually are more expensive, or sometimes are more expensive than the rest, right? Because you need to consider also this startup environment you are surrounded, right? But also another topic that it's really important to get to know, because when you have some idea, for example, because now I believe that some people are going to watch this who has some idea for a business idea or service or whatever, and they want to do this, they're vegans and they want to promote this vegan lifestyle way, whatever, and the thing is that how can you actually check if this is gonna be successful in the future? How to check the market, how to know if this is gonna be gold or this is gonna be trash?
Yeah, so I think there's like two jobs that you have to do to say I kind of check the market, right? The first one we already spoke about. So it's like you make the product and you try to sell it to like random people, not fully random. You can obviously, if you have a special product for vegans, you're obviously gonna market vegans, but they shouldn't be your friends. They should be at least a rough acquaintances, if not totally random people you find online. But that's only part of the story. The other thing you have to see is how many people are there on this planet that are actually going to be interested in your product, right? So if you do something like, let's say, a service for vegan business people to find their vegan friendly hotel, which is an idea I had a while ago. You soon realize that there's only 1% of all the business people who are vegan. So it's really a small amount of people, and it's you would have to charge an insane amount of money to whoever is paying
to be profitable or to
right.
To grow.
On the other hand, if you say if I take our example and you say we'll do plant-based steaks, steaks are eaten every day across the globe, blah blah blah. It's a huge it's a huge market, right? So try to think, your market should be quite big. Venture capitalists from Silicon Valley, they kind of say, we want to understand before we invest how this business you're doing can become a 100 million per year revenue business, right? So that's kind of their benchmark. Of course,
that you start to talk about,
so if they don't see a way after talking briefly or after seeing your presentation how this idea could actually scale, not that are you capable of doing it or whatever, but can they imagine this business can be this big? If it's not, they wouldn't invest. Obviously there's other investors, European ones, more local people who will also obviously invest in a lot smaller businesses, even if they don't have such huge potential. But the market should be big enough to sustain your business. You cannot survive if you will have to do something for two people, unless they're willing to pay enough so you can survive by selling just to two people. But
so the thing is,
food is not like that. Food has to be sold to many people.
Yeah, of course, and you have to have completely different mindset for these kind of things, huh? Because, for example, now that we're listening to you, because just like 2 hours ago we did some action, we're like activists. We do things like in the first rows, we really talk to people. We try to see them, show them the mirror and stuff like that. So we have completely different mindset, I would say, huh? When we listen, for example, your way of activism, which is also activism, because this is like how we can get.
I mean, for the purpose of this podcast, I'm happy to call what we are doing activism. Otherwise, I would rather call it building a company. But still,
but it's just because of marketing reasons.
Yeah.
Tell us more about this mindset that you have to convince non-vegans, because if I understood correctly, you're not selling only to vegans these steaks, right?
I mean, actually, if you look at our website, or if you will track us in the following months, we actually purposefully stayed away from using words such as veganism or anything like that.
Tell us more about that. Yeah.
Because we really want to bridge the cultural gap. There's a huge gap between vegans and meat eaters, and I agree that activism is necessary because a lot of people need this small spark of truth, to kind of start thinking about this process. Most of people will walk away appalled when they encounter veganism, but it's meant when they encounter activism, but it's meant to be provoking. It's meant to be eye-opening, and even if you close up, then this little spark remains in you, and you kind of start thinking more broad, and I always say, more benefit will be done for the environment if we would get every meat eater to eat this kind of products once per week than if we convert, once, 100% more vegans, right? So it's like, if we would go
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is kind of hard to hear for us, right? Because it's not the way to tell people, oh, once a week is enough or whatever, because this is not true, because we're here for the animals, because we do this. Everyone who is doing this, doing it for the animals, but then again, we're just talking different language because we want to reach non-vegans, right? I mean, this is the
exactly. Yeah. So and we purposefully wanted to stay away from this discussion because we noticed that a lot of non-vegans wouldn't touch a product that's meant for vegans. And we want to kind of be smarter than that and just say, well, this is just a really tasty product, Tide. It's full of protein, no saturated fats, tastes delicious, it's whatever. And if you like it, you'll eat it more and more and more. And eventually, this will, outplace meat. Currently, sadly, plant-based products are seemingly not yet outplacing meat. They are just being used on top of meat. But I'm pretty sure, because the way food industry works and the way margins are and the way, I always like to make the comparison that basically, our steel cow, if you feed it 100 beans of soy or whatever, gives you back 100 beans of soy to eat. But the real cow, if you feed her 100 beans of soy, it will only give you back 3 beans of soy to eat. So in terms of calories, right? So we are much more efficient. And I think, that's my big, not so bright future prediction, is that it will not be vegan activists who do the most to switch a lot of people away from meat, but it will actually be big multinationals who just figure out that plant-based food is much, much cheaper. And for people who don't care what they're eating, they will just replace it, so.
Yeah. However, I mean, I think both is completely valid, I love what you do and people who do similar things than you. But I really think that we need both, because to have convinced vegans, no? Because of course. People may go flexitarian, which is as you said, on the global scale, good. But to have convinced vegans, they really need to know the why. And that's why they need us.
I mean, it's we need all the tools. It's
exactly.
It's very similar to how we are now fighting COVID. We are disinfecting hands, we're wearing masks, we're keeping distance, we're vaccinating, whatever, So, but you need all those layers of protection to kind of keep the society safe. Now, it's safe for the transition to non-meat society. You have you have the activism layer, which is comparable to vaccination, very polarizing, but you also have the distancing and the mask and the washing hands, which is more like plant-based meat. It's like a gentler approach, right?
But can I go back to something that you said before? Sure. Because we talked quickly about the vegan word. Do you think it's something we should avoid in general, or just for what you do when you sell products?
No, that's
even as activists.
You as activists, and don't get me wrong, I do admire your work. It's often dangerous, but it's more than dangerous. I would feel extremely uncomfortable staying in a supermarket with an open laptop. I mean, this has to be really hard to do. But I do think it's necessary. As I said, and you absolutely should use the word. It is polarizing, but again, I think it's a people need these nudges to be nudged out of their comfort zone to then maybe change the perspective.
Totally.
I think it's very important to understand that when we are active, when we speak to people directly, when we show them the mirror, sometimes they don't like it, and maybe this puts bad light to veganism. Some people say, but this is in long term normal if you want to make a change, social change. Whenever the social change in the past happened, was not comfortable. Even when you said to someone, you should not use black people for your slaves, This was like, oh, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm gonna fight for this. They were shooting people and stuff like that. And even black people were trying to like, no, don't do this because we already don't have rights and so on. So we get this part, and it's not easy. But the thing is that what we're doing is actually very important to get people to think about these things, this topic, even if they're angry or sad or whatever. And then we have these options, which is amazing. That you can see, oh, what the fuck? I can actually eat the meat like before, of course, plant-based meat without any harm to animals. I think it's gold.
And as well, I mean, activism is amazing, but as well for abolition of slavery, a lot of machines helped. When this was industrialized and people had machines to do their work.
Exactly.
So it goes really together. This different things.
As I said, all the layers of this fight, if you wish, are kind of necessary. And then at some point the scale will tip, and then it will be a bit easier. But hopefully this is sooner than later.
So another question that's I think very important, especially when you have vegan business, or let's say business which you want to sell not only to vegans, because if you want to sell only to vegans, this is pretty small market, as you said. You want to sell this across, this means to non-vegans, which is even more important because this is called activism, because then we are talking about change. Because if you're talking only about vegans and vegan community and this bubble, then we cannot really grow. And this is how you grow. So how should we communicate this message, without pushing people away? Because you learn this. This is science. This is also something that you have to know when you have a company like that. And I'm really interested in this.
I mean, I touched on this briefly already, but we decided to play the experiences first, and education is kind of second tier. And we don't want to use like full frontal activism in that sense within our brand, right? It's something that we, in order to be attractive to more people, we kind of decided against that, and we are using humor to educate people, right? Because I think this is one of the best way to educate people is to use.
For example, do you have an example maybe?
Well, there's like 100 ways you can answer the lifelong question, what do you eat then, right? That's, there's so many ways you can answer this question. And, you can either be like, oh man, everybody asked me this, or you can be really creative and humorous to how you answer this question. But there's like other ways of humor. We're using illustrations. We're trying to be a brand that does not take itself too seriously. Everybody is now trying to be really, polished and stuff like that. But we are like, a little bit crazy when it comes to, taking ourselves, not. But there's like some hidden messages, that are, you see, there's like some education, but it is presented in a non-preachy way, if you wish. We're not, it's not. Nothing we show we show is scary, right? So it's easy to look at. In contrast to your imagery, right? Your imagery is supposed to be difficult and heavy because you're trying to make this little click in people's hands.
Cool.
So I mean, these are like two different kind of ways. And my advice to like any vegan entrepreneur would be, they have to realize, the sooner the better they realize that the majority of their customers, if they succeed, will not be vegan, at least for a while. The better they are, the better the chances are they will succeed, right? Because if you make a really terrific vegan product, chances are that it will also be terrific for non-vegans, right? I mean, there is a fraction of people who will actually walk around superstores and they will see one orange juice with the vegan stamp and one without, and they will take the non-vegan one because they think vegan is something special, oh, this is for vegans. I cannot eat this. But most people, if something is good, they will eat it, right? It's funny. What we notice often, they won't admit it's good. Like, especially Vladimir has this experience, in his previous company. They would serve these foods that they would do to many different people, and then at the end people would say, "Oh, it was so delicious. I'm so full. It was really nice." But it's not something I would do every day. It's like so it's quick. It's very often that people are so stuck in their cultural forms that it's hard to get them out. So
yeah, so maybe for this topic I can share quickly some experience that I made, because for a time I was full-time activist and just around activists, and I didn't think how the society really sees the world, because I was in a bubble, and now I work as a nurse and I am all the time around non-vegans, and I see how they think. And I think for addressing the message, it's very good, as you say, to have non-vegan people in the company, or to at least develop the product with non-vegans to get their advices, to see how in which world they live, in order to bring the message across. So it's interesting for them as well. I was really shocked when I saw how my co-workers think about animal products. It's so far from what I know. So
because once you understand why you're vegan, and especially if you're vegan for animals, then you cannot see the other way. I experienced this myself as well. After like a few days, I was like seeing everything completely different, and then you cannot even understand how people think. But I think it's very important to talk to them, first of all, to people who are not vegan, not just with vegans, because this is always my aim. And secondly, to try to send them something. I mean, to try to get somehow cooperation.
Cool. So let me just turn on my lights.
No worries.
No problem.
But you wanted to reply to this, or?
It's okay. Let's go on.
Good, because I think it's very important to think about something specific that we talked about with the preparation for this talk. Because I know that you research this topic and you go to this very pragmatically and so on. So tell us, what does the future of meat industry look like, by your opinion, or by some?
So meat data. Industry is a huge business, right? Because it's so huge, there's also a lot of really smart people working in this industry, and this means that companies will adapt, right? The problem right now is that meat is so. What happened, if you look like globally, the job of the food industry in the last 50 years, or even more, basically in the last 100 years, the job of the food industry was to feed a lot of people. So, how can we create enough calories that we can feed everybody? There's still people hungry, so that even that job is not completely finalized, right? But it's not about the amount of food we can create, but it's how efficiently we can distribute it across the globe. That's the problem right now. But that was the basic job. So now it kind of the focus now shifted is how can we keep people healthy with food, right? How can we make sure that the workforce is not dying and being retired and la la la. So because the mission was to kind of create enough calories, all sorts of incentives and laws and regulations were passed to support that, right? So like creating very sweet foods which people would then eat more even if they didn't taste as good, right? Doing really fatty thing, whatever. So it was the goal to feed people. People didn't consume enough calories. Now we on average on the planet eat more than enough calories, and we the food industry is slowly turning. So the meat industry also had this fair share of things, right? So for example, think of animals as storage for energy, right? So if you have a cow stores a lot of calories, and basically it's like a battery, but the battery discharges itself over time slowly. And the cow, if you don't feed it, it will die of hunger, But it's
human is the same. But let's take an example of cow.
But we don't eat humans, right? So
not us, but some people do. Anyway,
exactly. Well, whatever. So animals originally were basically energy storage, So you would have animals with you because you could carry energy with you. And then if you think about what the goal was of the planet was to feed more people, of course, there was all these incentives of make more and more and more meat, because meat is good, meat is tastes good, meat is like it's fairly, and it's quite an easy process. Keeping cows, you feed them and they grow and whatever. So there's all these incentives that the meat industry had to basically grow and optimize and grow, right? The margins in the meat industry are tiny. In software business, you have huge profits. In food industry, you have smaller profits. And the food production is really optimized to run really like on the small margins. So if and when we'll take the subventions away, so the subsidies for meat away, it will just collapse.
Let's repeat. But let's repeat this. When they will do what? What will happen?
When the subsidies for every cow that's now grown is basically grown in part by money. Food for the cow is bought with the money that governments give out to farmers. That's like that.
That's the big deal.
Yeah. So this is like, if this money goes away, dairy industry collapses immediately. Meat industry collapses very soon. But there's one more thing that we could do, and I have to give credit to Pat Brown. I just heard this on his lecture the other day. He's saying that once the carbon emission markets will actually start working. So when you big companies have to buy those carbon emissions coupons to kind of offset the carbon they produce, you have to kind of pay money to kind of buy your way out of producing carbon. So if this market would work efficiently, they calculated that basically it would be more profitable for farmers to actually grow forests on the land that they are today using to keep the cows, because growing forests would give them more income than cows currently do, or more profit, not more income, right? Maybe less income but more profit. Yeah. So
Crazy.
there's this little shifts in global economics that have to make it's not a huge deal. It's not like, wow. I told you before, we don't have to convince everybody to become vegan. Most people will become vegan because it will be the cheapest way to live, right? Sadly, but this is how I think it will happen, because
it's not sadly.
It's not sadly. It's good,
right?
It's good for the animals, obviously. I mean, there will be a lot less animals on the planet when this happens, obviously, right? But also a lot less suffering. But there's this small economic incentives that you start tweaking them, soon meat industry starts looking really terrible as a business.
Can we change this, by the way? So sorry, but can we change this somehow? What can we do?
I mean, you can be a political activist for changing the subsidy system for meat. You can be a political activist for greenhouse gas emissions. Those are levers who influence on a higher level. But keep in mind, smart people run the meat industry, and they are already adapting. If you look at the big meat companies in the US, a lot of them already changed their name from being a meat company to being a protein company.
Really?
Because they know, let's say Tyson was a meat company, right? Now Tyson is a protein company. Because they know that the way we produce protein will change in the next 10, 20, 30 years, and they want to be part of that new business also.
Of course, this is business for them, nothing else. Yeah.
How and that's why I'm so confident. Then I have this famous prediction that in 5 years, when you will walk into at least some of the major fast food chains, you will have to pay extra to get real meat.
We really hope so.
We hope we're not gonna even have it. But
in Switzerland, I saw a restaurant where you have to pay 90 cents extra to have cow's milk inside. So this is already coming in some places.
It's slowly changing. Yes, it's slowly changing.
But this brings us to a topic that's like very debated in the vegan community. Like, we're all vegan, but we have so different opinions on this. What do you think, Tilen? Should we support non-vegan companies? Like, go to McDonalds, go to Tyson, like these big companies who are not really ethical as a vegan. Should we go there or not?
Yeah. I mean, you just named a few that I don't know Tyson enough to have an opinion, but for McDonald's, it's, what they sell is tasty. It's not healthy. So, I would say don't go to McDonald's for health reasons. But I still grab a fries every now and then. I'm going to admit, I'm not, fries and salad and apple pie, I think, are the only 3 vegan options that McDonald's has. So, I have the occasional fries and salad there. But honestly, I don't think there's a right answer to that. But, on the other hand, I do honestly believe that those companies will be the ones who will, replace the most meals with a plant-based option the quickest, because they will just do so, and people will, I think they're just counting, they have these launches, I don't know if you track, but every now and then, either Kentucky Fried or, whoever has this special deal with plant-based nuggets and stuff like that. And once, they notice that people actually don't complain, or they even like the plant-based ones better, they will just change it, and just, that will be it, right?
So, for example, we have people in Switzerland, they have a slaughterhouse called Bell, and we do vigils there, for the animals. And exactly in this slaughterhouse, they slaughtered the cows for McDonald's. And so many vegans say, how can you go there, do the protest, and then go to McDonald's even for only taking fries, but that they are killing the cows? So it's really a controversial topic.
True, it is. But again, as an entrepreneur and a father of 3, if you 300 children in your car, if you drive past a McDonald's on your travels, we stop and we have some fries. Sorry, I mean, I think that we have to find economic incentives to really change the masses. I mean, yes, we can, with activism, we can create more people like us that then start to think pragmatically about how to change the things. Maybe, a politician will be moved by the activists to the point where they will start thinking more about the environment, and then maybe they will, in one point in their career, have the option to, remove the subsidies for meat, and they will do they will do a lot for the animals, without actually, stating this every day, right?
Yeah, I also think this is a very interesting topic, because my point of view is maybe more on this side, that we should support them, although this is controversial, because if, for example, Burger King gets this vegan, let's say plant-based burger, and they, of course, or McDonald's, and they support and produce so much violence towards animals, they have their own slaughterhouses that are terrible. Every slaughterhouse is terrible in any way, and also how they produce this unhealthy food that's actually killing so many more people than any other thing that we're talking about these days or these years and so on. But then if you go there to support this, this is not, people say this is not ethical. And I agree on that. But on the same time, if we get every company to start producing vegan products, to start experience these profits from vegan plant-based options and stuff like that, I think this is the fastest way to veganism. And even though we don't like to support some people, some companies and so on who are not vegan, I think this is still gold. I mean, good to support them, because then you show how in a way it's like you go to a vote, and you vote with your money, and you show that this is actually working. Of course, a lot of non-vegans do that as well, but the thing is that I think we should support every option. Of course, we would support more people or companies like yours, so it's vegan, it's completely vegan, and has this clear purpose and so on. But then again, I think it's important to support movement towards this direction, even though it goes hard.
I basically, what I do is, I now, everywhere I go and ask for coffee, if they don't have plant-based milk, I give them a short lecture, oh my God, you're so out of fashion, you need to get some plant-based milk. What do you mean you don't have plant-based milk? So it's I think with you can still be a consumer, a conscious consumer, and then demand. I mean, obviously, if you go to McDonald's and order something they don't have, they will be like, but there's people in those companies making really hard calculations when to launch, what to launch. But in part, of course, they will say, oh, we are now so much more friendly to the environment, blah 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 blah. But the underlying motivation will be in the large part also financial.
And I think it's as well important to take into consideration everyone who is against going once in a while to McDonald's to have, of course, the vegan option. If we go to supermarkets, we are as well in a place where a lot of violence is being sold, and many people, for example, in Zurich, there are many vegan stores. However, most people, vegans, go to the supermarket, even though this is as well an unethical place if you want. So
yeah,
it's not easy to take the decisions. No, it's the most important to do as good as you can. And yeah, as well, when you support them, to know that you support them towards a more vegan future, like McDonald's or something. Even though I don't like to go there, but
one thing that I was actually shocked. I spoke to a German meat distributor. They were interested in our product, so we jumped on a call.
Okay, cool.
They did an analysis for their products, and they found out that the meat production, beef production, is responsible for 98% of the carbon of the greenhouse gas emissions, and only 2% are for the logistics. So
really, whoa.
You know how often we are like scrutinizing, mangoes and avocados and bananas and la, right? I think one thing that vegans could do is actually get our facts straight around how harmful and how, whatever individual elements of the food supply chain are, right? So when I heard this, I was like, I'm gonna have my bananas from Ecuador, like, nyam every day, because if that's the real difference for beef, then basically the ship can drive 6 times around the planet, and it will still be less pollution from the logistics than from the meat production. So it's I don't know. This is why we decided not to go in the vegan versus not vegan debate, but just make kick-ass products that will just blow minds of meat eaters, vegans,
I think it's smart.
everybody else.
I think it's smart, and later if you try it and you get to know that this is vegan or plant-based, you're just blown away. And I think this is good. And again, I think we should. Do you have something else, or should we go to talk about his product?
We can continue. Good. This, okay. Because the time and everything is amazing.
Because we can talk so much more about these topics, and also maybe sometimes in front of the camera I cannot really go into these things so much, but still we want to talk about your product because I think it's amazing, and I think we should support this in any case. So let's talk about these juicy marbles, and let's do a short study case about it. How you started, what happened, where are you going, where are you now, and so on. So maybe we can understand.
And show again the pictures for the people who are watching, so they get hungry. Because I get every time he shows this, I'm like, oh God, this looks so good. So just show it again.
Thanks. Yeah. So a short case study. Basically, we met 2.5 years ago, and I started basically hanging out with the guys, just experimenting on different things.
Okay.
We even launched a plant-based burger here in Slovenia with limited success because it was wrong timing. Everybody else came to the market with the plant-based burger this time. So, but we took the learning that people, especially in Slovenia, we heard the comment a lot. Well, but this is all minced meat. I want a real steak. And this kind of opened. Okay, so really, people actually want real steaks. And we went back to the drawing board. Mai is a physicist, and he heard about some physical methods of transforming plant protein into fibers. So we built a gadget, we built a prototype that actually delivered a small piece, and then we built a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one, and eventually we came to the current state of the product. Applied to Y Combinator, which is a very famous American accelerator. This really gave us a boost because they coach you in a specific way, a really American way of thinking about entrepreneurship. So one of the advice that I keep on passing forward is we started with the question, what should you do as a plant-based or a vegan entrepreneur, and the question, the reply would be, do things that don't scale. So create something awesome, something amazing, but it's really hard to see how this could be scaled. And then once you validate that the thing is awesome, then think about how to scale it, right? And when you deep dive into stories of how Airbnb was made and all those big companies, they all did something awesome that was hard to scale, and then they scaled it, right? So after that, we started building the company, and we are now based near Ljubljana, in Slovenia. We are just moving into our new facility, and products will be available. I would say early next year. So
cool.
That's something I'm willing to commit now. And yeah, hopefully people will flock to our website and order. Yes, ordering meat online is not the most environmentally friendly thing, but for the purpose of experiencing the product and raving about it, it's perfectly fine. And hopefully we'll be in a few regional retail chains also very soon.
But we get the product before next year, right?
Yeah.
You said you send a sample to us.
Yes, I will send you a sample.
I mean, you see, we are looking at this, and we have like I don't know, wet mouth.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I always said I don't want more realistic meat replacement, because I think this will gross me out, but because meat really grosses me out. But this not at all, because I know it's without violence, but it looks like, I loved meat.
It's not animal.
So it looks really, oh God, really, I want to try this.
Meat eaters will say, but you're horrible. You're horrible. What you're doing to your soybeans, You're destroying them.
But really amazing.
Yeah, thanks.
How many employees do you have now?
We're currently at about 15 employees. Because food businesses has this difficult phase where you kind of have to become a big company to be able to sell to retail. If you're a small company, you cannot sell to retail, and you somehow have to grow up. And then some entrepreneurs, save and do little business for 10 years, which is called bootstrapping. We said change needs to happen quickly. Look at what Tesla did for the electric automobile. They gathered a lot of money and then now are basically transforming the industry. And we said, well, there's money out there to do that. So let's capture some of that money and try to do the same.
I think it's amazing. One more thing I just like to ask you, because I think it's quite common lately. I don't know why, but what do you think about people who said that we should not name this plant-based meat because it's not meat?
Yeah.
Do you have some problems with that, by the way, with the company?
Well, we are expecting to have problems with this. We'll handle the problems when we get there. We are a little bit strategic about it, so we're not using words that would be problematic, or we're trying. We're making but it's a fine line. Can you still So is a burger because it's made out of meat, or is a burger because of the shape, etc., etc. But yeah, this will for sure be a problem. And again, one of those problems that a politician that was shaken by activism might then start to look differently, and then they might help pass a legislation that will be more friendly and allow people to call an oat milk, right? Which is it's kind of protecting the consumer. But here's one interesting thing that you can say to anybody arguing it's not meat. There's these two big directions of alternative meats. One is called plant-based, and it's using plants to make products which are similar to meat, and the other one is cell-grown, which is usually using cells out of an animal that's there, then recreated in masses, and this will eventually produce meat. I think this technology is still a few years away from the market. But what happens when this technology is ripe enough and they start producing fish, and you have people who are allergic to fish? will you not call this fish, and then somebody will eat it and die because it didn't say fish on it?
That's a good point.
Will you allow it to be fish because it's fish, right? So I'm kind of counting on those companies to tackle this once and for all. For us, plant people will just be super creative and wiggle our way around this.
It's pretty cool.
Never thought about this actually.
No,
this
it's a good angle because we're talking about this quite often,
Yeah.
But of course, this is going to be something that is going to be talked about.
I'm totally sure that this technology will come. That we will eat actual meat cells, but without animals dying. I just think it will take some time before we get there. But there's going to be hybrid products, hybrid. So like you'll have one part plant and one part cell grown and
so it's like this. But also, do you think this is ethical or okay to have this meat that it's lab grown? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't have an ethical concern, to be honest, because if we
because
would
they say it depends how you get the cells.
You still kill some animals, not in the process.
It depends. Yeah, they have
so now it's still quite a majority of companies that do this still use something that's called bovine's fetal serum or something like that. Whatever, I forgot the name. I would have to look it up, but it's still a animal derived growth medium to grow the cells. Especially for the muscle cells, you need that. For fat, I guess you can go around with not using animal products. And there will be some time before this technology is ripe enough that you can enjoy those products. But literally, it's the same as for the purposes of which medical procedure? This one medical procedure, they took a sample of a human in 1972, and they're still using cells from that line. So it's like, even if every cell-grown company has to slaughter one animal in the beginning and then that's it, I'm happy with that because it's going to be, so many less animal killed because of that, right? But I'm more pragmatic than probably most activists are.
I mean, I don't know enough about it to really have a proper opinion, so I don't like to say things just to say something. However, I think it's like with what I said before, the machines that helped as well to abolish slavery. So for me, it's not at all appealing. Why? I mean, what you do looks amazing already, and there are so many plants I can eat. But if this helps that people leave alone the animals, I'm more than happy, So, but I need to really read more to know.
It's gonna be an interesting. I mean, plant-based will always be the most approachable and the most economical option. So, if you ask me what's going to be in 50 years, yes, we are going to look at meat industry as we now look at slavery. So,
Amen. I believe so as well.
I will still be alive.
And there will be two parts of products. I would say there will be three. People in the Amazon forest who are not exposed to civilization will still eat animals. Then people in the civilization will eat mostly plant-based derived meats, and then some special occasions we will have, or rich people will have the cell-grown meats, but animals will not be used anymore. That's my hope for the future.
Cool.
That would be so beautiful, really.
Yeah, we're aiming there. Although this is still not vegan world because we're talking just about meat now, but this is another topic for another conversation maybe.
But anyway, I think if these animals are not grown anymore to produce meat, they're not grown as well for dairy and for eggs.
I hope as well, but hope is usually, you never know.
My personal opinion, dairy will be dead much sooner than meat.
Okay, then we are good. We're good because this produces so much violence, even more than the meat industry.
I think dairy is dead within 10 years.
Amen. So soon.
Tilen.
I mean,
I mean, look, now you can make really cheesy cheese out of corn. So when this hits the market, I'm pushing, this predictions to the extreme, but we will see really, really rapid and radical advancement in how we are producing food in the next 10 years.
But it's
You
again
know,
about subsidies a lot, no? Because in Switzerland, dairy production is huge, like really huge, and they're
yeah,
all subsidized by the state. So it's not enough to get these farmers vegan by having an amazing cheese. They need more.
it's
You
funny.
know,
I think the milk industry, the dairy industry is collapsing in on itself already. I think, you know,
Is this just a feeling, or you have some data? I mean, sorry, but I really want to know.
I
Because,
mean, just Google how many dairies are being closed in the US every week. You know, people are demanding plant-based milks for their consumption, and then if you don't have a high enough milk consumption, also all the other dairy products kind of start crumbling in terms of how viable they are as a business, right?
but again, I think I don't know enough, but might be country depending, because many people, when they come to Switzerland, activists, they say they've never seen a country advertising so much dairy than we in every placard, and so
Yeah.
I didn't hear that here this is collapsing yet at
So
all. But
I was really worried about that, because, you know, I thought as long as a country is subsidizing dairy and meat, it will never subsidize plant-based anything, right? It turns out that countries have a very rich history of subsidizing opposing technologies,
okay.
because they are just placing bets. You know, when you're a country, you're not thinking about, oh, so meat is bad and plant-based is good, and that's why I want to then switch everybody to that. But you're thinking, okay, so as a country, I will be best off if I have a little bit of both. So let's subsidize both. So I think it's you know, it's better to fight to get subsidies for plant-based foods, or even, like, you know, we always say we're not playing a fair game because we're competing against a heavily subsidized product, right? So if you would take the subsidy away from a filet mignon, which in Switzerland, you know, you probably don't know because you don't eat meat, but the piece of meat that we are producing actually costs around 100 euros per kilo in Switzerland, right? If you would take the subsidies away, this price would go up probably to 150 or something per kilo, right? And if you take the subsidy away, you know, and we compete on a plain leveling on a plain playing field, on a level playing field, then plant-based options are even better, because you know, now we are not subsidized in any way.
Sounds amazing. This is actually quite optimistic for the end of
yes.
conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. But before we actually end this conversation,
Matej wants to summarize it up, no?
no problem, I can. No, but even sooner than that, you know, do you maybe do you need someone else, or maybe can someone help you with juicy marbles somewhere, or do you you start selling this after New Year's? You said that on this website that we showed before.
Yeah.
So everyone who's interested, they can go to this page of yours, and in, let's say, after the New Year's, you can start buying these meats for yourself.
Yes.
You can get it even in, where do you sell this all around the globe, or just?
So we will see how this goes, but like Europe is quite, I think is pretty confirmed when it comes to shipping online. Maybe will require people to buy a little bit more in bulk. So you buy maybe 10 pieces in bulk, and
So
then
it's,
kind of the packaging makes sense and all of that. We'll see how that goes. But you know, if you really want to help us, spread the word, spread it on social media, and kind of ping your retailer to have us in their shelves.
Perfect.
Cool.
So yeah.
Good. So for the end, should I conclude a little bit?
Yes, conclude.
Okay, thank you. So Tilen, by the way, before we conclude, do you have something else to maybe share or tell to our customers, or maybe something that we didn't mention but would be nice to mention while having this conversation?
Maybe next time when you have, I mean, there's not many meat eaters in this audience, I guess, but those of you who are, think about what's good and what's bad about the experience of eating real meat. Just think about heart, you know, think about the origin of the meat, think about the experience of the meat, the hassle of cooking it, and the experience of actually eating it, not just like, you know, seeing a picture of a steak, but actually what do you feel when you eat a steak? And then think about our product, which doesn't have any of those problems.
It's actually a good angle, very good angle to think about. Even if you're not vegan, to just maybe stop and when you're alone at home, nobody's watching you, nobody's judging you. You can just think about yourself and you get to the answers, because sometimes we say that we know as vegans that we are right. It's not like we know we're right, that we should not do this for many reasons. It's not about because we're better, but because if you think about it, it's the right way to do.
Yeah.
But in any case, for people who maybe just started watching now, or maybe for the intro for something else, let me just tell you that today we were talking about entrepreneurship, how to actually produce, how not vegans, because if you're vegan and if you want to do activism in a way of business, in a way of like selling a product or a service, then you have to have some different kind of mentality to understand what works and what sells to people. If you didn't watch this video before, go and watch it again, and maybe rewatch it 2 or 3 times to get more clue about this, and also maybe contact Tilen if he's going to have time. He's going to maybe answer. But the thing is, find out what works and what can change the world, because we as vegans, we cannot sell only to vegans, because then, first of all, we only do this in a bubble. Even if we're very successful, this is still in a bubble. But we need to go further. We need to go abroad, I would say, to get to non-vegans, to people who will actually make the change in the world. And today we were talking also about Juicy Marbles. This is a company of Tilen, which is an amazing company. For the last time, I'm going to show you this footage. This footage of these steaks, because they look exactly the same like the real meat, which of course is not, because this, what you're looking right here, right now, is a plant on the plate. Nothing else. Plant on the plate, but very well done. And that's why I really would like to support this company, support Tilen, and if anyone wants to, I can connect you with Tilen. And of course, I wish you a lot of success, Tilen, in this journey. We're here for you to help you with promotion or anything else. Is also eating,
and in Switzerland maybe as well if you need something.
Of course, in Switzerland we have some,
because we know people.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming. I really enjoyed this conversation. I learned a lot, and I feel way more optimistic after this conversation to see the vegan world, actually, for, of course, different reasons that I would want. I mean, but doesn't matter. The reason is not the important. You're going to get the vegan world.
Because as an activist, sometimes it's really like you lose hope. You lose hope when you have these conversations, but this is like really helps to believe.
It's same with entrepreneurship. You sometimes lose hope.
I believe it. I believe. Anyway, Tilen, have fun. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, but for you who are at home, share, comment, like, and make sure that this podcast is seen by many people, because I believe every vegan entrepreneur should hear this and get something out of it.
And follow us, okay? Because we need more followers.
Yeah, but not on the street. Follow us on Facebook and YouTube, and also follow Tilen on Facebook, YouTube, his page, and so on.
Can't wait to try your filet mignon that's vegan, plant-based.
Cool.
So send it soon. Have fun.
Bye, people.
And
Bye-bye.
See you soon.